Every neighborhood has secrets, but this one hides something darker. The first thing Emily noticed about Maplewood Estates was how quiet it seemed. The streets stretched in smooth, perfect curves, lined with identical oak trees and trimmed hedges cut at precisely the same height. No weeds, no loose shingles. Every mailbox gleamed black with polished brass numbers. It was the kind of place real estate brochures called serene. But as she drove down Hawthorne Lane in her dusty Subaru, Emily felt the silence press against her like a held breath. Her realtor had insisted Maplewood was the safest, friendliest neighborhood in town. And on the surface, it was. Kids rode bikes in neat cul-de-sacs, retirees waved from their porches, and somewhere a lawnmower hummed like a distant lullaby. Still, something in the symmetry of it all unnerved her. Emily parked in front of her new townhouse, number 14B, and stepped out. The moving van idled behind her, its rumbling engine almost offensive in the hush of the neighborhood. She could already feel eyes on her. A pair of blinds shifting slightly across the street, a shadow lingering on the porch 2 doors down. "Welcome." A voice startled her. A tall woman in a crisp beige sweater came briskly down the sidewalk, her smile stretched too wide. She introduced herself as Marian Ellis, the HOA president. "We're so pleased to have you join Maplewood," Marian said, clasping Emily's hand firmly. "The association prides itself on maintaining harmony." Emily nodded politely. Marian handed her a glossy welcome packet. Rules printed in bold, cheerful fonts. Lawn height regulations, paint color restrictions, even guidelines on curtain fabrics. Emily laughed nervously. "That detailed, huh?" Marian's smile didn't falter. "Order keeps us safe." The first week passed uneventfully. Emily unpacked, explored the jogging trails, waved back at the neighbors. Everyone seemed friendly enough, but in a way that felt rehearsed. Conversations ended abruptly when she asked casual questions. A few neighbors avoided eye contact altogether. On Friday night, she returned from the grocery store to find a slip of paper shoved under her door. No envelope, no note, just a folded sheet. She almost tossed it in the recycling, but something made her pause. The handwriting inside was jagged, hurried. "Not everything is what it seems here. This is the list." Beneath the words was a series of names, written in careful block letters. Next to 3 of them, someone had drawn a small red circle. Emily recognized some of the surnames. She had seen for sale signs in front of their homes just last month when she toured the neighborhood. Her stomach tightened. She refolded the paper quickly and shoved it into her kitchen drawer. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe some bitter resident wanted to stir up trouble with the HOA. She told herself it was nothing. But the next morning, as she scrolled the local news on her phone, she froze. Local man found dead in Maplewood Estates home. The picture showed a face she recognized, one of the names circled in red. At the HOA's Saturday community coffee hour, Emily watched Marian laugh with a group of neighbors, pouring steaming cups from a thermos. The mood was cheerful, almost aggressively normal. Emily felt the folded paper burning in her pocket. She leaned toward the man next to her, a young dad she'd met once on the jogging trail. "Did you hear about what happened to Mr. Callahan?" The man stiffened. His smile didn't waver, but his eyes flicked to Marian before returning to Emily. "Tragic. Heart attack. These things happen." "But the news said," Emily started. He cut her off, his voice low. "Don't ask questions. Not here." Before she could respond, Marian's bright voice rang out. "Emily, I hope you're finding everything to your liking in our little community." "No concerns, I hope." Emily swallowed. Everyone was watching her. She forced a smile. "No concerns at all." That night, sleep wouldn't come. Emily lay in bed, the glow of her phone screen illuminating the note again. She traced the red circles with her finger. Who had slipped this under her door? And why her? A creak sounded outside her window. She jumped, pulling back the curtain. A dark figure moved along the sidewalk, pausing in front of her townhouse. The glow of a cigarette flared briefly, then the figure turned and melted back into the shadows. Emily's breath quickened. She reached for her phone to call someone. The police? A neighbor? But who could she trust here? By Monday, another name on the list had been circled in the news. A woman relocated suddenly. According to the HOA newsletter, her house was dark, her yard already tended by someone else. Emily's hands shook as she stared at the note. 2 names gone. And then she noticed something she hadn't before. A faint smudge near the bottom of the page, where the ink had bled slightly. She held it under the lamp. There was another name, half erased but still legible. Her own. Emily Carter, circled in red. Her blood ran cold. That evening, she confronted Marian. "I need to talk to you about something," Emily said, her voice sharper than she intended. Marian tilted her head, that same pleasant mask in place. "Of course, dear." Emily hesitated. Showing her the list felt dangerous, but keeping it hidden felt worse. She slid the folded paper across Marian's desk at the HOA office. Marian opened it slowly, scanned the names. Then she looked up, her smile unbroken. "Where did you get this?" "It was slipped under my door," Emily said, her throat dry. "What is it? Why are these people?" Marian's laughter was sudden and jarring. "Oh, my dear, this is nothing but an old delinquent dues sheet. People who fall behind on their fees, that's all." "But there," Emily stopped herself. Marian's eyes hardened for a fraction of a second. "Homeownership can be stressful. People move. People pass away. You shouldn't read too much into it." She folded the paper neatly and slid it back across the desk. "Burn it. For your own peace of mind." Walking home, Emily's chest felt heavy. She knew Marian was lying. She knew it in her bones. And when she reached her front porch, she knew something else. Someone had been inside. The lock bore no scratches, the door no damage. But the faint smell of cigarette smoke lingered in the hall, and on the kitchen counter lay a single envelope. Inside was another list, and this time her name wasn't just circled. It was underlined. Twice. Emily didn't sleep that night. She sat at the kitchen table with the envelope spread in front of her, the paper trembling in her hands. The names were the same, but this time there were more red circles, and her name slashed twice with angry red ink. She wanted to call the police, but what would she say? That the HOA was slipping her scary notes? That people on the list were dying? She imagined the dispatcher's flat tone, the weary sigh. "Ma'am, it sounds like a prank. Try locking your doors." But someone had been inside her house. Someone had walked through her rooms without leaving a trace. By morning, her decision was made. She had to find out who left the list and why. The neighborhood looked the same as always, impossibly tidy. Lawns gleamed with dew. Sprinklers ticked in unison. Neighbors waved with plastic smiles. But Emily saw them differently now. Which one had been in her home? Which of these cheerful faces was waiting for her to slip? She lingered outside number 22, where Mr. Callahan had lived. The blinds were drawn. A realty sign staked in the yard already bearing the bold red "sold" sticker. She checked her phone. He'd been dead less than a week. Who moved that fast? She crossed the street, heart hammering, and pretended to admire the landscaping. The lockbox was still on the door. On impulse, she pressed her ear against it. Silence. But then the faintest hum, like a generator, coming from inside. She backed away quickly. The next HOA coffee hour, Emily noticed something she hadn't before. Cameras. Small, black domes tucked into the corners of the clubhouse ceiling. They weren't just for security, they were angled inward, toward the residents. Marian gave her usual speech about unity and harmony, but Emily barely heard. She was staring at the board members lined up behind her. 4 of them, smiling politely, eyes scanning the crowd like hawks. One of them, a heavy-set man with slicked-back hair, caught her gaze and held it a moment too long. Emily looked away, pulse racing. Afterward, she pulled aside the young dad she'd spoken to before. His name was Ryan. He looked nervous even standing next to her. "Ryan," she whispered. "You knew about the list, didn't you? You tried to warn me." He stiffened. "I don't know what you're talking about. You said not to ask questions." He glanced over his shoulder. Stop, please. They're watching us. Who? But he was already walking away. That night, another news alert buzzed her phone.
Maplewood resident dies in Akzidentalfall.
Her stomach turned. Another name from the list, another red circle. She paced her kitchen, clutching the envelope. She couldn't sit here waiting to be next. She had to dig deeper. She pulled out her laptop and searched property records for Maplewood Estates. The results made her blood run cold. Every home that had gone dark in the last 5 years, every single one, was bought up within weeks by a holding company with ties to the HOA. The board wasn't just running a neighborhood. They were swallowing it whole. But why? A sharp knock at the door made her jump. She froze, listening. The knock came again, 3 deliberate raps. Emily crept to the peephole. No one was there. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stop digging or you're next. The following day, she drove to the county library. If Maplewood had secrets, the old archives might hold them. She combed through yellowed newspapers until her eyes ached. And then she found it. Local family disappears. Home purchased by HOA trustee. Date: 1998. The article was vague, mentioning financial distress and unpaid dues. But the language was eerily similar to Marian's. She flipped through more clippings, her heart pounding. Year after year, stories repeated. Families gone. Houses acquired. It wasn't about dues. It was about control. Emily snapped photos of the articles and shoved them in her bag. She felt watched even here, between the dusty shelves. On her way out, she nearly collided with Marian herself. Oh! Marian's smile was as bright as ever. What a surprise seeing you here. Emily stammered something about research for work. Marian's eyes flicked to her bag, then back to her face. Well, Marian said smoothly, we always encourage our residents to be informed. But remember, dear, curiosity can be dangerous. Emily's blood ran cold. That night, she dreamed of red circles closing around her name like a noose. She woke drenched in sweat, her curtains stirring though the window was shut. On the kitchen table lay another note. She hadn't heard anyone come in. 3 names remain. 1 is yours. Her hands shook so badly she dropped the paper. She found Ryan the next morning at the park, pushing his daughter on the swing. She didn't bother with pleasantries. Ryan, listen to me. I know what they're doing. I found the old news clippings. Families don't just disappear. They're being erased. He paled, glancing around. Stop talking. You know I'm right. His jaw tightened. Yes, and if you keep this up, you won't make it another week. Then help me. Ryan looked at his daughter, then back at Emily. His voice dropped. There's a meeting. Tonight. The boardroom under the clubhouse. You didn't hear this from me. Emily waited until after midnight. The streets were empty, the houses dark. She crept across the manicured lawns, her breath clouding in the cold night air. The clubhouse loomed ahead, windows glowing faintly. She slipped around the side, found a service door, and pressed her ear against it. Muffled voices, a low chant. Her heart hammered as she pushed the door open a crack. Inside, the board members stood around a long table. A list lay spread across it, names marked in red. Candles flickered, casting grotesque shadows on their faces. And at the head of the table, Marian's voice rose clear and commanding. 3 remain. By week's end, order will be restored. Emily's stomach turned. She recognized the names on the paper, hers among them. She pulled back, but the door creaked. Heads snapped up. Who's there? Emily fled into the night. She didn't sleep. She didn't eat. By dawn, she was shaking with exhaustion and fear. And then, just as the sun lit her street, she saw it. Spray painted in dripping red across her garage door. You're next. The red spray paint still dripped on Emily's garage door when the HOA truck pulled up. 2 men in polo shirts hopped out with buckets and brushes. Their faces were blank, efficient. Courtesy service? One of them muttered, already painting over the words. Emily stood frozen on the porch. Did you see who did this? she asked. The man didn't look up. Vandals. Outsiders. Happens sometimes. She wanted to scream at him, no it doesn't. Not here. But her throat locked. She watched the words vanish under a fresh coat of beige. By the time they left, there was no trace of the threat. Just another perfect Maplewood home. But she knew the message wasn't for the neighbors. It was for her. That night, Emily packed a bag. She couldn't stay. If she left now, before they made their move, maybe she could escape. But when she slid into her car, keys trembling in her hand, the engine wouldn't turn. She tried again. Dead. Her headlights flicked on by themselves, blazing into the dark. She gasped and scrambled out, heart hammering. From across the street, someone stood watching. A figure in the shadows, unmoving. Emily bolted back inside and locked every door. She spent the night in a corner of her living room, clutching a kitchen knife, the silence broken only by her ragged breathing. The next morning, Marian came knocking. Emily didn't answer, but Marian's voice floated through the door, sweet as honey. Emily, dear, we noticed you've been distressed. The association wants to help. Why don't you join us tonight for a private meeting? We can clear everything up. Emily stayed silent. Marian chuckled softly. You can't hide forever. We take care of our own. The footsteps retreated. Emily collapsed against the wall, her knife slipping from her hand. That evening, Ryan appeared at her door, eyes darting nervously. You have to leave, he whispered. Tonight. Now. I tried. My car. They control everything. He cut her off. Utilities, locks, cameras. You're already boxed in. Tears stung Emily's eyes. Then what do I do? Ryan hesitated, then pressed a folded paper into her hand. Back gate. Midnight. Don't tell anyone. Before she could thank him, he was gone. She unfolded the paper. It was a crude map, marked with an X at the edge of the neighborhood. Hope flickered in her chest. Maybe she could still escape. At midnight, Emily crept through the backyards, her bag slung over her shoulder. Every house loomed silent, windows dark. She clutched the paper in one hand, her flashlight in the other. When she reached the back gate, her breath caught. It stood open, swinging gently in the night breeze. Relief surged through her. She broke into a run and froze. On the other side of the gate, standing in a semicircle, were Marian and the board members. Ryan stood with them, his eyes downcast. Emily's stomach dropped. I'm sorry, Ryan whispered. Marian stepped forward, her smile gleaming in the moonlight. We told you not to dig. Emily backed away, but rough hands seized her from behind. Neighbors she hadn't even noticed. The retired couple from down the street, the teenage boy with the skateboard. Closing in, their faces cold and expressionless. They dragged her toward the clubhouse, her screams muffled by the night. Inside, the long table was already prepared. Candles flickered, casting shadows on the walls. At the center lay the blacklist. Her name at the top, underlined twice. Marian stood at the head, voice calm and reverent. Every community needs order. Every garden needs pruning. You refused to obey. You threatened harmony. Emily struggled against the hands pinning her, throat raw. You're killing people. Correction, Marian said softly. We're preserving Maplewood. Those who resist are removed. The board murmured in unison. Removed. Marian picked up a pen, dipped it in red ink, and drew a final slash through Emily's name. The last thing Emily saw was the list sliding across the table, her name obliterated in red. The last thing she heard was Marian's voice, smooth as silk. Welcome to Maplewood, Emily. You're finally part of the community. Weeks later, the real estate brochure for 14B Hawthorne Lane hit the market. Charming townhouse in a safe, family-friendly neighborhood. HOA fees ensure peace and harmony. New owner required immediately. And under the door of the next unsuspecting buyer, a folded paper would soon appear. A new list, a new name circled in red. If you want to uncover more secrets of the HOA, don't forget to subscribe.